the divine incarnation in human form, Swami Brahmananda Saraswati. The great saint of the century, Swami Brahmananda Saraswati of Jyotirmit, Badarikashram will ever be remembered by all generations to come for his selfless service rendered to uphold the esoteric Vedic principles of Hindu religion and protect the sacred motherland India at the most crucial moment of spiritual degeneration and decadence of ethical values. An epitome of pure and sublime personality, Swamiji used to shower his invisible aura of bliss and solace for the downtrodden society lost in the chimera of religious degradation. He was the divine incarnation in human form, the knowledge of self-realization i.e. Brahmavidya was deeply imbibed in him in order to be transmitted to the deserving few. The tapasvis, true spiritual aspirants, envisioned in him their true master of austerity and penance. The followers of the path of knowledge failed to fathom deep into his ocean of knowledge, and the yogis, true renunciants, noticed in him the culmination of yogic achievements at the highest level of performance. Jagadguru was born in an elite Brahmin family of high erudition in the year 1928 Vikram Samvat Tithi, Shukla Dashang of Agrahyana month. He achieved the state of complete renunciation at his very tender age of 9, which inspired him to leave home and go to the inaccessible heights of Uttarakhand, Himalayas, to pursue his line of austere sadhana. He had a strong determination accompanied by unshakable willpower to pursue the path of spirituality at any cost. A length of 5 years elapsed in search of a true spiritual master, Sadguru, for Swami Brahmananda. He had taken the vow to accept a person as Sadguru who would satisfy all requisite attributes as per scriptural instructions. After a long lapse of time he met with success. His guru was a born celibate, Bal Brahmachari, Dandaswami Krishnananda Maharaj of Uttar Kashi. He accepted the initial Brahmachari Diksha from his master of the greatest renunciation and started living in his company for 12 years, entirely dedicating his life to yogic austerity and learning of scriptures. Swamiji used to live all alone, away from din and bustle of social life, ever merged in the bliss of the Satchidananda consciousness. Buddho Jadova Dacharet. He lived in complete isolation, never disclosing regarding his immeasurable depth of knowledge of the Supreme to anyone. He was totally indifferent to world and its affairs, but the need of the hour was to look for such a realized saint to save the society from the crucial cultural peril. Though he used to remain in trance most of the time, being completely oblivious to the outside activities, devotees in large number came to see him to pay their obeisance and seek his valuable guidance. He started delivering messages of peace and solace to numberless devotees and helped them to be relieved from worldly afflictions. The command came from his revered Guru, and he at the age of 36 came down to Prayag, the confluence of sacred rivers of Ganga, Yamuna and Saraswati, and started living in the ashram of his master after being initiated into Sannyas Diksha as a mendicant cum renunciant. He immediately left again for the Himalayas for further sadhana as per the command of Guru, and started leading the life of a dandi sannyasi in the lap of nature. He achieved the highest stage of God realization by the grace of his Guru, and again came down to the land of austerity, Tapobhumi i.e. the dense Vindhya hills of Madhya Pradesh, Amakantak, and as per his master's instruction started living in complete isolation and austerity in the inaccessible regions of Narmada Tat, where it is even difficult for the sun rays to penetrate. The region was a safe shelter for wild animals like lion, tiger, wild boars, elephants, deadliest snakes, etc. But Swami Brahmananda's attention was never distracted by these means. He was ever in the state of deep meditation in the divine solitude of sacred hills by river Narmada, drinking the elixir of heavenly intoxication. Now the time came for a change. It was in the year 1908 in the dense jungles of the region Garoya, situated between Amakantak and Jabalpur, surrounded by windy range of mountains, when Swami Brahmananda used to merge in contemplation of the divine, a miracle took place. It was during this period people of the region of Amakantak were greatly terrified by the unprecedented fatal attack of a man-eater, killing around 100 human lives within the span of 2 years. People of the hilly areas were in great panic because of the man-eater, called as tiger of the region, had created such a precarious situation to live a normal life. Sri Shamsher Bahadur Rana from Nepal, who later became the Prime Minister of the country, was invited to undertake the arduous task of killing the man-eater. He succeeded partly by firing a few shots at the tiger. But the man-eater was unfortunately not killed after being hit by the shots. It retreated to the dense jungles of Amakantak soon. Bahadur Rana along with his followers entered the forest in search of the injured man-eater. Alas! It was lying almost immobile at the feet of a saint, and the sage was pouring water from his kamandalu, sacred pot used by sannyasis, over the fresh wound of the tiger, at the same time uttering the following words of solace to the wild animal: Hinsa chhod do bachcha. Shant ho ja, Anand naan mein raho, leave ill feelings and jealousy, my child. Be at peace and live in bliss. Immediately afterwards the ferocious tiger stood up, looked at the enlightened sage surrounded by a spiritual brilliance, cast a glance to the people standing by, i.e. Rana and others, in a state of perplexity at this unexpected encounter, and soon fled into the dense forest. Rana and his associates proceeded towards the sage with utter amazement and great admiration. They prostrated before his divine presence with high reverence. They sought the identity of the sannyasi, but the latter did not utter any words. Disappointed, Rana went back to Nepal. Again, after a lapse of 1 month, he came back to the same spot of jungles of Garoya, accompanied by Hemraj, the learned Agnihotri Pandit of the royal court. This time they were fortunate enough to have conversation with the sage Swami Brahmananda. Pandit Hemraj had given a detailed account of his meeting with the realized sage in the journal Nepal Samachar, as I had 40 philosophical riddles to be solved in my life. I spent a large part of life in having discussions with renowned philosophers and learned men of the time, but none were able to solve my problems. Now, with the generous companionship of Rana, I was fortunate enough to meet the sage of the highest order of the time, and as I prostrated before him, all my unsolved riddles found their solution by themselves, even without any exchange of verbal communication. The sage is the disciple of the well-known Dandaswami Krishnananda Saraswati of Uttarakhanda, known as Jagadguru Shankaracharya Swami Brahmananda Saraswati. The awestruck Rana and Hemraj returned to Nepal after their auspicious visit to the saint in the densest forests of Amakantak. He gave a detailed description of the miraculous happening, which was mainly due to the spiritual accomplishments of the enlightened sadhu of the highest order, who was none other than Swami Brahmananda Saraswati. The letter consisting of this account is being kept safe and secure in the Society of Bharat Dharma Mahamandala of Kashi. They too wrote a letter to Swami Gyanananda Maharaj, the founder of Bharat Dharma Mahamandala, who sincerely dedicated his life for development of Sanatana culture. In the words of Pandit Hemraj, Ahimsa pratishtayam tat sannidho bharatyaga. Man established perfectly on the eternal principle of non-violence of mind, body and spirit will never fall victim to injury of any kind by the wildest of the wild animals, even if surrounded by them. The ferocious animals will leave their inherent nature of enmity for mankind. Mahatma Swami Brahmananda Saraswati is a living epitome of the following mantra of Patanjali I. Nirvichara Vasharadhya Hadya Maprasada. The who attains this state of realization remains forever in the enlightened level of consciousness in all three states of existence, i.e., 1. Awakened state Jagrata, 2. Dreaming state Swapna, and 3. Deep state of sleep Sushupti. Thus the quest for the genuine Acharya, head of Jyotirmatha, began. The dignitaries of Bharat Dharma Mahamandala of Kashi came to meet Swami Brahmananda in this regard. The reason behind writing the letter to Bharat Dharma Mahamandala on the part of Hemraj was quite obvious, as the seat of Acharya of Jyotirmat of Badarikashram was vacant in absence of a true master for a long period of 165 years after the demise of Jagadguru Swami Ramatirtha. The 4 monasteries or Jyotirmathas were established at 4 different places of India like Puri, Dwarka, Rameshwaram and Badrinath under the auspicious patronage of Adi Shankaracharya.